You're entering the Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, the Week 11 DFS NFL picks. We're going to be going through ownership, injuries, building some lineups. But first, we need to talk to John Breslin from 4for4.com. Tambo from Ship It Nation also on the line. But John, sixth in the Millionaire Maker winner. Or not the Millionaire Maker.
Yeah.
The Millionaire Maker. You almost won.
Davis Mills lineup that went nuts. And it was close enough that that I was actually thinking, because it was about 3 minutes left in the last game of the 4 p.m. games. I was, winning the Millie Maker. I was like, God, do we have champagne in the fridge? I might need to take care of this before my wife gets home, put some champagne in the fridge. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, of course, broke my heart with a 44-yard touchdown run that, got me leapfrogged by 5 teams. But, always good to have a winning day in DFS. So, can't complain.
Tambo, we were talking about last week, you winning the Millionaire Maker. So, of course, then it would be John who propels himself up the leaderboard. But I was talking to Jared before the show. He's just dipping his toes into the DraftKings waters. And he was like, well, how John came 6th? How much did he win? $100,000? I was like, yeah, hate to tell you, that's not how it works.
Yeah, not quite how it works exactly. But yeah, you mentioned it, John's experience. Congrats to John. Also last night, big night in the streets for John there with a world championship seat and a win I saw as well. So congrats to him on that. And I was saying I wanted to proxy the win, the mustache removal part of the Millie Maker, if I could get that off John. And I'm sure he would have happily passed that part along and just kept the $1 million, champagne or not.
Yeah, well, clean shaven,
Yeah,
maybe that's how it has to go. Although Padded Rooms Memes, who does all the thumbnails for this show, is loving your mustache, Tambo. It's going to be a mustache-themed thumbnail until you cut it off.
It's going to be perfect. Yeah, I'm going to keep it for as long as possible. I'm just fine with it. It's working out great, and I'm happy. So we'll see. When I win the Millie Maker, though, that's when I'll cut it off. That's the new one.
All right, so John, let's dig into what's going on in terms of injuries this week, because it's seemingly opened up a lot of value at receiver, because the Marvin Harrison appendix news came out a little bit later in the week that he's not playing. So now you have Michael Wilson, you have Greg Dortch. Obviously, McBride has been smashing every single week that Brissett has been playing quarterback, so it's not a shocker that when I ran the optimal, Brissett, McBride, and Wilson are all in there.
Yeah, you always got to pay attention to injuries, but especially the post-pricing injuries, because, it does. It particularly opens up value on Arizona wide receivers, and they have a great pass-catching tight end, and that is vaulting Jacoby Brissett into optimal lineups. If you put groups and rules in there about give me the top quarterback wide receiver stack or anything like that. So I think we're going to see heavy Jacoby Brissett ownership. But he kind of deserves it. He's averaging 22.9 DraftKings points in his 4 starts so far this season. He's making that whole Arizona passing offense look better than Kyler Murray, frankly.
Do you worry, Tambo, that maybe a bit too owned for maybe going all in on Jacoby Brissett isn't the move?
Again, look, it's probably the move. If you look at the projections, you look at everything, you make a case for all of it. But we got a perfect storm, actually, if you wanted to fade it, because it is going to be what would be considered, I think, over-owned if you pulled out the optimal percentages and look at it, because the perfect storm is we just had the Rams throw all over the 49ers. Boom, we land on this offense of the Cardinals now going up against the 49ers. You got Brock Purdy and Pearsall back, where it makes it, this could go even crazier now. And then you have the Trey McBride coming off just a massive game already, and then you get Marv Harrison out. So it is a perfect storm. It makes a ton of sense. If you're playing a portfolio of lineups, I'm most certainly going to have it in. But as we look throughout the show, and I think if you wanted to make a case, you could definitely say that this spot could end up over-owned just because of all those other factors put together.
Any interest in saying, hey, let's fade this passing game? It looks like Bam Knight may or may not play. He's dealing with a high ankle sprain, which usually means you're not going to play. Although he'd return to practice this week. Doesn't seem like Trey Benson's going to go either. And now you have DeMarcado, who might get all of the work in this game, at $4,500.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way to look at it for sure. Always going to be looking for different angles if I'm not going to be in on that spot. But I think it also reminiscent of last week, if you could have played the Seahawks. Speaking of going against Brissett, is if you weren't on the Arizona side and you weren't on McBride, all that, you really could have had Brissett and the Seahawks defense. But if you want to play the defense against, I think the 49ers here would be fine if you do want to move off the passing game or just the Cardinals stuff in general. And then I also think just getting off the game stack and instead going to something like CMC and the defense or a piece of either side. And then you would get busted up if the game stack gets there. But I'm saying in the lineups, especially for single entry, things like that. But myself, Alex Blickel, will talk through more of that tomorrow on Leverage Lane. So I think that's kind of how I'm looking at this spot right now. There's a ton of games, 11 in total.
Yeah, Ship It Nation YouTube channel, Saturday mornings, you can catch Tambo and Blickel up there talking through it's the 20 max, right?
We just do, it's mainly focused on single entry, which is, again, a lot of people say there's no content around that. We're always talking about milli makers. And of course we are. We want to shave off these mustaches. But just in general, I think it's important that, other content still focuses on how do you sort of start in a single entry and then build out. And you can extrapolate from there. If you build a good single entry, you could say, okay, now what am I doing next? Or where am I going from there up to kind of 20 max? There's a ton of MME content already.
And John, you're live after this show later on Friday afternoons on the 4for4 YouTube channel. I know that Davis does that show with you. Can you pitch it as it's your idea just to see what Davis says about this?
Actually, I think like Davis might have some good news and is actually not going to be making the show.
Oh,
today.
He has the really good news.
I think so. I haven't confirmed, but we do the 12:30 DFS MVP podcast. So it'll be today. It'll be myself, Neil Orfield, and Pat Crane. We'll run things past Davis once he gets back.
Well, see, I think you could have talked Davis into this. You run it by Pat and Neil and see what they say about my favorite stack of the week. I've ran this by Tambo for years, and I think I finally got him coming around on my side a little bit, but I want your take on it, and then pass it off, good or bad idea. The best stack of the week, Jameis with Packers D.
It's always a fun game with Jameis Winston. I was literally just thinking about the Packers defense and just boosting them in my in my projections with the news that Jameis is going to get the start for the Giants, and he likes to air it out. So it's a great stack. It's a stack that makes us want to change our optimizer settings.
See, that's the move. Jameis, listen, I talked about this. Yeah, we've talked about this a ton, Tambo, because I love bringing it up. It's not really you. It's more of a me thing. Hence why I lose money every week. But it's not the craziest stack in the world. Jameis loves throwing pick sixes. It's kind of his thing.
The best part is there's two good things there. Actually, I'm going to go back to one. But one you just said is the best part is we've talked about this a ton. We've not talked about this a ton. We've argued about this a ton where I said it's ridiculous, but you love doing it even on an 11-game slate. Obviously, Jameis is the best candidate if you were ever going to do that. And then the other funny part I thought that just happened was when John said it sounded at first like he said, there's good news. We won't have Davis on the show today. And I was like, damn, poor Davis. There is some people out there that are like, oh man. But yeah, that's good news for him. I think it's, this is going to be a fun slate, Pat. And obviously I knew you were going to bring up Jameis versus the Packers defense. So we'll get there, I'm sure. Yeah.
Big Daddy Davis. We can start calling him pretty soon. Hopefully the news ends up being good today. And that's what it is. But weather is the other thing that I wanted to talk about. John, I'll go to you with this. There's looking like a lot of bad weather games this week.
Yeah, it gets to be that time of year. It actually kind of sneaks up on us because we get so used to playing football without, having to worry about the occasional, rainstorm or whatever throughout the early part of the season. But then, you start to get to mid-November and Thanksgiving time and December, start putting up the Christmas lights. And you got to remember, check for, heavy wind, ice, rain, throughout the country.
It didn't make that much of a difference in New England on Thursday night. The offenses moved pretty slowly, Tambo. But do you adjust at all? Or because the spread and the totals generally do factor in the weather, hence they influence the projections, that you don't really care?
Yeah, I look at it a lot less once. I care about it a lot, but I'm saying because of those factors, it's going to lead that way. Like you're going to see when you go to your optimizers this week of situational stuff with the Falcons game, and you're going to see stuff with the Minnesota game. And it's already moving to domes and situational spots like that outside of certain price examples. But again, that's another added bonus to the Cardinals game where you can add that into the mix as well. So I think on single entry, things like that, and it gets even further, you got to look at it a little bit, but for the most part, it's already factored in. So that's noticeable.
So just to run through the games, which might have some weather concerns, and they might not even be weather concerns, they could actually help. Because, if it's light snow in a game, John, sometimes that really benefits the offense because, I always say the offense knows where it's going and the defense doesn't. They have to kind of turn on a dime in some of these situations. They just fall down. All of a sudden, you got an 80-yard touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. No, that is exactly what happens. Is the offense has the advantage of knowing where they want to run. Defense is trying to pivot and stop on a dime and catch up. And that usually works on dry grass, fields. When it's like snow and rain and ice, it can be a major advantage for the offense. But it also, I think, it just adds some volatility to the games as well. Like you don't know like which team has better cleats, right? Like a team can get an actual like equipment advantage and on the other team, and so you can see maybe a little bit more volatility added to games.
We saw this last week with the Patriots and the Buccaneers, that the Patriots actually had to switch their cleats after a quarter of the game, Tambo, because they just couldn't get any grip on the wet field in Tampa. And then they went off.
I've not factored that in. Anyone who knows me and has followed me for a long time in the golf DFS streets, when it's like hashtag equipment chat, where it's, oh, this new driver is getting pulled out and all this, I'm always like, oh man, how would I know how to adjust for that? I did not know that we're outside the fact. I know people are adjusting and switching cleats and stuff, but I don't know like the brands and the customization and all that. So that's added news to me. And I'm actually not sure if that's factored into the projections or not. So something we'll have to think about moving forward.
Well, you have to go to those team grades that they release on The Athletic every single year to see how the equipment staff is. So if the equipment staff isn't like, expect the Bengals to have the worst gear, put it that way.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense.
So the Bills game is going to be outside, obviously. It's right around freezing, 36 degrees Fahrenheit with 16-mile-per-hour winds and light snow. So that's one concern. Things are good in Tennessee. I'm not going to mention the indoor games because who cares? The Giants, 15-mile-per-hour winds, but right around 50 Fahrenheit and partially cloudy. That sounds fine, although 15's starting to get up there. Partially cloudy, 14-mile-per-hour winds, 50 degrees in Pittsburgh for Bengals and Steelers. The Jags, it's above 70. No one cares. Not a lot of wind there. Rams inside. Browns, 22-mile-per-hour winds, John, and 40 degrees. That game looks awful.
Yeah, no, I've spent some portion of my life in like Cleveland and Pittsburgh winters, so I'm like kind of familiar with the effects. Yeah, it does sound awful. That you get that lake effect wind.
Yeah, the one that's going to be the most difficult to figure out, I think, and maybe it's just a very low chance of rain showers that won't be affected, but is Chiefs Broncos, Tambo. It's going to be warm, but it's just going to be raining. Maybe some people are like me; they just don't like being outside in the rain. It really bothers them. Like if it starts sprinkling when I'm golfing, I'm like, I'm out of here. I hate this.
Well, the good news, Pat, is that game features Patrick Mahomes on an 11-game slate, so no interest for me anyway. So it doesn't matter for me.
Okay. That's the weather report. The other one from that game, another injury that I wanted to talk about, it doesn't seem, Tambo, like we're getting J.K. Dobbins in this game, which opens up R.J. Harvey at $5,400, which I think in theory is a really good idea because he's averaging the most PPR points per touch in terms of receptions of any running back so far this year. I just don't trust that Sean Payton's going to give him like a big dog role that we're probably just still going to see him with 12 touches.
Yeah, that's what makes it tough to figure out. And then also just the running back board this week of having, there's at least a few guys in that upper 5K, lower 6K range that are just a little bit more than his price tag. So I think you could consider that as well.
Were there any other injury opportunities, John, that outside of the Arizona receivers, outside of Harvey, that maybe you're bumping up the board a little bit?
I think we got to keep an eye on like Dalton Kincaid. I mean, nothing major, but like, you could have a cheap Bills tight end situation with Dawson Knox. I believe Knox is healthy, but yeah, you always want to pay attention to the Friday practice reports, but I think you covered the major impacts.
Yeah, I'll be running that through on my Saturday show. It'll also be available in the free newsletter, which you can subscribe to in the description right now. It'll also be a free article up on 4for4.com. If you want to get the optimizer and, sharp stack, whatever it might be, betting, DFS, season-long fantasy, 4for4.com/Mayo, code Mayo50 gets you a free week. Plus, gets you 50% off the monthly plan. Let's take a look at the optimal that I pulled up on DraftKings right now from said optimizer. Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback of choice, along with Michael Wilson and Trey McBride, who is in the flex spot in the afternoon games at $6,300. Dowdle and Warren as the two running backs, Jamar Chase and Drake London as the two other receivers. So a pay up at receiver, pay a little bit down at running back this week because you can get away with so much because of Brissett and Michael Wilson. Colston Loveland is a pay down tight end as well. He is kind of on an island by himself here, the only player from that game in this lineup at tight end. And Broncos defense going against the Chiefs. Tampa, we got Brissett with a double stack with Michael Wilson and Trey McBride. No Niners in this lineup, but we have Warren and Chase going head-to-head and Dowdle and London going head-to-head. Honestly, the optimizer constructed a pretty decent correlated lineup here.
Yeah, it's a good setup with more than usual, right? We usually have like 9 randomized plays based on whatever it is, based on the projections, ownership, all those factors. But I think this is probably one of the more tournament style lineups we've seen it put in to start the week.
John, what would be the first thing that you would change about this?
So it strikes me as a lineup with some good players, but I think we could maybe get a little bit more like correlation. I don't love like the Denver defense. I think one, and I don't know that I necessarily like. I think like Colson Loveland is fine. I'd maybe stick to like one tight end. So I'd like maybe get McBride in there at the tight end spot. We could, if we want like a cheap wide receiver, then we could use Greg Dortch. We're adding some more correlation. I think that I'd maybe also I'd probably boot Drake London and try my best to get up like Christian McCaffrey.
That was the first thing that I thought. Who would you rather drop here? Would you rather we'll drop London, Tambo. Does that mean we drop Dowdle because he's more money and he was the correlation with Drake London to see if we can make McCaffrey work?
Let's start there so we can spend, and then you can get the triple stack with Dortch, Wilson, McBride. If you move Dortch up, we can now think about your guy. If maybe it's RJ Harvey, maybe it's somebody else. I don't know. I'm just saying that's at least something you could. You can actually put RJ Harvey and I don't love them either, to John's point, but just saying the Broncos D with RJ Harvey if you wanted to improve it a little bit there and make it match up. But you can go to whatever you want there. It's just noting it.
You could also go with the Panthers defense, John, because they're playing Atlanta, and Atlanta might just throw you a bunch of balls, which is helpful.
Yeah, but we do want to keep in mind it's a Jameis Winston slate as well, and we also have Houston going up against Tennessee. So there's a bunch of good options. Some of them are expensive, but we'll see how much salary we have left to play with.
So we have Warren at $6,100. We still have Chase in this lineup. If we wanted to get a better defense or even a better running back, like if we got rid of Chase, let's say, I feel like we could upgrade both defense and then 2 running back spots if we wanted to. Would that be a route that you'd want to go, or should we stick with Jamar Chase?
I think Jamar Chase is in a good spot, and we've got the correlation there with Warren. If I'm getting rid of Jamar Chase, I potentially want to add the other Chase Brown, but we'd have to see where that like lands on the. It would probably have to be at the expense of RJ Harvey there.
We can get rid of RJ Harvey. So now we have Harvey gone, a receiver gone, and a DST gone. So we have 3 more spots to fill in this lineup, Tambo. Did you prefer having just John Packers D is where you want to be?
It's Jameis Winston.
Okay, so let's say we're committing to Packers D. That gives us $6,700 per player for a wide receiver in flex, Tambo.
Yeah, I was trying to put it together. I was trying to flip the build a little bit from what you had just had, and I was trying to get DK Metcalf across. So you'd had Warren and Jamar Chase. I was trying to flip it to Chase Brown and DK Metcalf to see what that gave me. And it kind of puts you in a little bit of a no man's land. You could, play Justin Jefferson, leave a couple $100. You could do something like that. But yeah, this is a trickier spot once we add in the Green Bay D.
Only because Devontae Adams, we're not sure what his status is going to be. It looks like he's going to play, but he is suffering from an oblique injury. And this was something that was pointed out by Pizzola John on my show yesterday, that Baker's both fantasy value and real life play have taken a significant hit since he sustained his oblique injury, that he simply doesn't run anymore, which I just completely did not factor in and think about at all. But it makes a ton of sense when you go back and look at his numbers now.
Yeah, and that's another thing we want to consider. Like all these injuries, unless the guy is actually out, we just kind of overlook them. But as we get into December, along with the weather, we want to be considerate of like who is actually really dinged up and just trying to play through it, and that always makes an impact.
Should we consider something like Chase Brown and Jalen Warren, and then see if we can get back up from DK, Tambo?
I just don't. For me, I'll tell you what. Like it's pretty simple. I would just change out Jefferson and Packers. And I would play Bijan and the Minnesota D, because we're not on that Minnesota game, and there's going to be people that are. Like JJ McCarthy's getting some ownership. Justin Jefferson's getting, if you're not going to be in on that, which your lineup is currently not in on that, I'd be more fine with something like this. It actually projects better by projections that I have than the ownership, than the original optimal. And this looks pretty good. So just, in one version, we can flip it a million different ways. But I mean, before I would worry about if the Green Bay could get 20 points and Vikings could get 15, and they're, cheaper, but Bijan could crush Justin Jefferson in that previous build or whatever else you've got within it. So, I mean, that's opportunity as well. So that's how I look at it, at least. And that's where I kind of see it right now.
So now we're at Brissett with the triple, Wilson, Dortch, and McBride with McCaffrey as a bring back, Chase Brown with DK Metcalf, and then we have Bijan Robinson as a standalone with Vikings D. John, do you want to make any more tweaks to this?
No, I think this is excellent. Like, this really does flip some of the highly owned players on the head, right? Like, we're going with Chase Brown instead of Jamar Chase, DK Metcalf instead of Jalen Warren. I think Bijan Robinson is going to see a very small ownership. There's this perception he's a little bit of a disappointment because Tyler Algier keeps getting these touchdowns, but this is a guy a few weeks ago, was putting up 30, 38 DraftKings points. Just 8,300. And the number of lineups that have McCaffrey and Bijan this week probably not going to be that high.
Probably not, but Tambo, Purdy is expected back and starting for the 49ers this week. It looks like Ricky Bullets is going to be back as well, so they might actually have their full complement of offense. Is there a way to, we can get to this in a second, completely flip this lineup and make it a 49ers type deal where you have, I know you don't want to play two tight ends, but having McBride and Kittle might make some sense. And you put in, I don't know, Jawan Jennings along with him with Purdy and keep some of those cheaper options to see what that allows you to do.
I think flipping is like, we just flip it, but it's harder to figure out. I think that's kind of the setup is now you go to the wide receiver where we could, previously just plug in Jawan Jennings, and now it does muddy it up a little bit. But to your point, if you were going to go double tight end, that would be a way to get different within this game stack. So I'd look at it that way just to get different and see how it goes.
So how would you stack up the 49ers, John? Would it be Purdy? Like, would you still you can use McCaffrey in this lineup too. You could go Purdy, McCaffrey, Kittle if you wanted to, because you can use the Arizona guys to make it affordable.
Yeah, I think so. And actually, I think the priority is probably George Kittle because you're going to see so many Trey McBride lineups from this game. Jacoby Brissett and Trey McBride. That I think if it's George Kittle getting 2 touchdowns, I think this is going to be a slate breaker immediately.
So let's try that. Let's try Purdy, McCaffrey, Kittle. We won't use McBride. What's the best way to deploy the Arizona guys? Is it Dortch and Wilson? Is it Wilson and DeMercado? Like, is this a spot for DeMercado?
I got one here, and then you can flip it. But again, it's going to be like when you look at the wide receivers, it makes it tricky. But if you fill it out, if you kept the Chase Brown, DK Metcalf that we had in there, it closes out perfectly with what you guys want. So go to Metcalf, and then you can put in
Packers D.
Yeah. You can put in Michael Wilson. And then I opted for the double tight end and kept McBride because, again, most that are game stacking this will have McBride. Maybe some will have McBride and CMC thinking, I got both of the good pieces. How many will have Kittle as well? And in this case, it lands you on Jawan Jennings. So, which you need some other pieces to the game stack, I think. So that's how I looked at it.
So I didn't go with McBride just to try to change this up a little bit. We do have $300 left over, John. So instead of McBride and what Tambo laid out, I put in Packers D with Jacobs, and then I used Dortch in the wide receiver spot.
Yeah, I think Josh Jacobs is in a great spot against this Giants defense. And Green Bay, he's getting healthier. So I think the correlation with the Packers defense is excellent. Hopefully Jameis turns it over at the 1 instead of giving up. Well, I guess even the pick 6 would help us in this lineup.
Just curious, Tambo, that would my version or your version rate out with more points? I would guess it's your version because it has McBride.
Yeah, I'm going to run it just to see. I'm almost done. I just got to put Dortch in, and then I'll get the number for you. $300 left on the table, right?
Yeah.
Yes. This is about 5 points worse. And it's only because Dortch and Wilson doubling down on, you're getting both the cheap guys. And I know it doesn't matter, but I'm just saying that's where it really stems from. And McBride obviously has a really good projection this week. So that's making up for it in the difference. And currently Jennings is still being projected decent enough, even with Pearsall coming back. So
yeah, I see that the same way, that Jennings is still being kind of propped up. And I just feel like his bell curve is wider now rather than when it was just him, no Ricky Bullets and Purdy coming back. You could probably count on him for 6 to 10 targets in that game. Now I'm not entirely sure that's definitely on his high end, but I think his low end is he's much more volatile, I guess I would say now.
The biggest thing is more, again, this is just my opinion, but the bigger thing is like this line, it's not about being duped. Like in classic, there's so many combinations. It's like, this is not going to be duped until people build off the show and take this and dupe it. Sure. But I'm saying in general, the way this is built, this lineup is a more common style of when people are using that value game and overstacking it, which is not going to be like some super sneaky thing this week, and then getting to Green Bay defense with their running back. Will it be duped before this? No, but I'm saying it's like that's kind of my point of the other version. It's not about just that it projects better. It's how many are going to have McBride, Kittle, and CMC with these guys, and then put like a Jennings, knowing that there's more uncertainty now with Bourne and Pearsall and other guys that are there. It's just a little bit of a more unique or different way, and it's probably better suited for the higher dollar, smaller field stuff, because then it really overtakes where most people aren't choosing to have double tight end from that game and paying for CMC and going the Purdy side, et cetera, et cetera. That's how I look at it.
John, would you agree with that?
Sorry, what was that?
Would you agree that overstacking it with Jennings because of the volatility, knowing some of these guys are back, that maybe instead of overusing the cheap pieces from Arizona, which a lot of people are going to do, that maybe flipping it and saying, hey, no Dortch, we'll put Jennings and McBride in here, overstack the game that way, but including Jennings and a quarterback with a running back allows you access to overstack this game in a way that other people are not?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think most people are going to be, putting Greg Dortch in this lineup. I think that Jennings is actually in a good spot. I agree that like Ricky Pearsall, the potential or likely return of Ricky Pearsall makes it seem like Jennings should take a step back, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. It's still a really good indoor environment. San Francisco has been passing the ball, and sometimes the total success of the offense, right, is beneficial to a player. So like Jennings might see a little bit of a dip in expectations for receiving yards, but maybe his chances of a touchdown increase, right? If the 49ers are getting all of their weapons back and healthy.
If we get to games where we're not punching in any Arizona Cardinals or any 49ers Tambo, would this be a spot where you would want to utilize one of their defenses?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely, and I like I said, I'm fine with going to these defenses anyway, but I think it's just another way to do it. Like I could just play McCaffrey and the 49ers, for example, if I wanted to do it that way. Still access McCaffrey, still get a piece of this game, not try and figure out the Brock Purdy's back with all the, just say that, look, he makes McCaffrey move, and McCaffrey's been fine even without him. So obviously it's McCaffrey. We can do that either way, but I'm not going to use. And that's the other reason why when we were stacking this game, and I mentioned, like you kind of caught on to it there at the end, is without Michael Wilson or Dortch at all, that's where it's going to be different, where most are using those to boost that other piece, right? Instead of Chase Brown and Metcalf, they'd be able to get to something closer to the Warren and Jamar Chase side. And again, whatever happens, happens, but just noting it, looking for ways to get different while still living within the same areas and same games. That's what I'm always trying to do.
John, are there any other Cardinals that you would think about using that we're just not even thinking of? Because like guys that just get upgraded and they're going to see more snaps. I don't even really know who that would be. Just like even looking at their depth charts, like I don't even really know who these guys are. Like you just cross those guys off.
Yeah, there's nobody that I'm like dying to get in. I mean, we've covered a good amount of Cardinals because I think we've talked about Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Trey McBride, and Amari DiMarcardo. Presuming that Bam Knight is not able to make the game, I'd be a little bit hesitant to like start reaching because like those guys are already really cheap, and I think they'll be the primary pieces. I'd be a little bit hesitant to like start dipping even farther down the depth chart just to save a couple $100.
Yeah, Zay Jones going to be out as well. I think he blew out his Achilles. So now we're looking at Xavier Weaver, who gets like 3 snaps a game. Maybe he gets upgraded. Simi Fehoko, the guy that used to play for the Chargers, he ran 28% of the routes last week. He's the one who did get upgraded a little bit when Zay Jones went down. So maybe it would be him. But Tambo, is that just a step too far, too tricky?
Yeah, 11 game slate. It's like even if someone will commit to someone of that pool and have it in their pool enough, and they still won't have the right lineup. So it's like very, very rare you see that come through, especially on a bigger slate. So more of a showdown thing for me.
All right, well, let's get to some of the more higher total games and build those up. But first, I want you to smash the like. If you want to ask a question, you got to sub to Mayo Media Network. Turn on those notifications as well and watch this ad. Somewhat surprisingly, I actually take tailgating very seriously. Grill fired up, cooler packed, and yeah, I'm the guy everyone counts on for the food. Whether that's my home barbecues, birthdays, tailgating, doesn't matter what it is, Pat Mayo is always relied upon for bringing the food. That's why I go with Omaha Steaks, the official sponsor of tailgating. They've been America's original butcher for over a century, and everything they send is top-notch, perfectly aged steaks, juicy burgers, those thick, deli-style franks, all delivered directly to your door. I tossed the ribeyes on the grill last weekend. Crazy tender, amazing flavor, and you can taste the quality. There's no off-season for flavor here. Make your next game day delicious with Omaha Steaks. Just head to omahasteaks.com and use promo code MAYO at checkout for $35 off your order. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code MAYO. Terms apply. See site for details. Whether you like golf, whether you like fantasy, or you just enjoy lots of money, starting the second week of January, the race for the Mayo Cup is on. Join thousands of fantasy players at fantasygolfchampionships.com for your shot at over $1 million in prizes, including the $110,000 first place prize. And this isn't like those giant contests where it goes from $110 to $20. No, everyone who finishes inside the top 250 this year wins at least 4 figures. Everyone inside the top 20 gets 5 figures. And it's simple. Takes 10 seconds a week. You pick one player per week. You can use that guy once all season long. Even if you know nothing about golf, you can still play in this and try to win the grand prize. Sign up now at fantasygolfchampionships.com or hit the description and just use the link. The race for the Mayo Cup is on. John, can we get you in the race for the Mayo Cup this year? Is he muted?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but if you came 6th in the Mayo Cup, you would have won 30 grand. I'm just saying.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Better than finishing 6th in the Millie Maker.
Yeah, which is shocking because there's far fewer people playing in the race for the Mayo Cup. Me and Tambo do it every year. And we what's the best you've ever finished in it, Tambo?
Not good. I think it's like 330th or something, and that was one time. There's a couple of years I've had multiple entries in it and not even cashed any of them. And my dad is the guy that's into it now so much, and love to see that. Got pops in, and he's enjoying it, and he's going to be back for this year. He cashed for $800 last year, so he's still searching for that 4-figure score. But what a horrible run out. He had like 5 signature events and majors down between signature events and majors down the stretch where he could have just really tacked onto that total and just didn't happen for him. So he's going to be back with a vengeance, Pat.
I like it. I thought, what did I do last year? I got to look at my history from last year. I won a bunch of my. I won $1,500, whatever that ended up being.
It's the lineup that was doing really well for us on the show, and then it didn't end up doing as well.
Yeah, when we hit 3 winners in 4 weeks, we hit Rory at the Masters, then JT the next week, and we just went up the leaderboard. The guy who won even forgot to put in picks last year. He just won so much.
It must be nice. That's how you got to do it, man. You got to run good like that to get to the very top. But I think for me, just a fun thing that you can do. I always represent it, tell everybody about it, and then getting my dad into it was a lot of fun between us to be able to go back and forth. He's using the tools. He's getting into he's got a Ship It Nation membership now. He's checking out stuff on there. So just love to see it all across the board. It's fun. If you're not into it, doesn't matter. Like the ad said, it doesn't matter. It's 10 seconds a week. It's so easy.
Yeah, my wife almost beat me last year, John. On 2 of my lineups. The one good one we had, that one was fantastic. But it gives you something to listen. If you're not into golf but you do want to get something down, it's like $8 per week or something like that. You just pay it all at the beginning, and you could win $110,000. Why not?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's where we want to be. How about JJ McCarthy? Is that where we want to be? Because this is the game, as you mentioned previously, Tambo. When we take a look at ownership, I know it's earlier on in the week, but he seems to be projected for double what the next closest quarterback is going to be, which is Josh Allen. Got him up right around 18-20%. I don't think that he'll end up coming in that high. That's a pretty strong indicator that this is the game that people are stacking up with likely pieces, the cheap pieces of that Arizona game.
Yeah, I agree. And good segue. You almost went from JJ Spawn to JJ McCarthy. We can come from the golf talk to the football streets. I think it's definitely a good spot here to look at least on a starting point on paper. It's, for me, something like McCarthy, Jefferson. I put Hawkinson in there at just 3K because if I'm playing a 3K guy like him, I kind of want it to be into the mix to help out JJ McCarthy and then can build it out from there. I'm not sure what you guys like from the Chicago side, but I think the next thing is to sort of consider what you're doing from that Arizona spot with San Francisco after the fact.
I'm more of an Adunze guy, John. That's my default for the Bears, but I would probably... Weirdly, I think I'd rather play Caleb in this game than JJ McCarthy.
Oh, I don't know. I've been a big JJ McCarthy fan. I started last week, and he put up career highs in passing yards and rushing yards. Like what are we now on his 5th career start? He's a guy that's just been thought of very highly, and he's still only 5,200, and he's facing the Bears passing defense.
Okay, which Bears do we throw in here then? Is it Adunze?
Well, does anybody have interest in Swift? I will say this little coach speak last week of like the hot hand. And then, at the end of the day, Swift came back after personal issues, after, potential questionable injury. All these factors still came through it and got, what do you get? 8 targets and 13 attempts on the ground. He's still very clearly in the mix. Minnesota's, you can beat them that way if you want to get after it. They do still have a 22.5, 23 point implied team total on the road going into Minnesota. I would be willing to play Swift here, just of note. And we do have value receivers and other receivers that we can get to, and that still leaves you money to go up to like if you wanted a CMC or something like that. So I'd be fine with Swift actually.
So Swift last week, John, played 62% of the offensive snaps for the Bears, where Monangai only played 38%. That's the biggest split that they had since week number 4, for those curious.
Yeah, I think Swift is okay. I think if I'm running a bunch of JJ McCarthy lineups, I think like certainly some of them will have Swift. I think some of them would have Aaron Jones though, and like Swift is at kind of a difficult price point just because you've got Jalen Warren right there is only 300 more, and Swift is more expensive than Chase Brown, who's more expensive than RJ Harvey, more expensive than Aaron Jones, all of whom have the points in their favor as well. If we're talking about like a bear, we might not want to overlook a guy that was in our optimal lineup, our initial optimal lineup, right? Is Colston Loveland. It fills the tight end position. Hawkinson is there. He's only 3K, but like Loveland has been seeing more action lately, right? He's the first round draft pick. He's the guy the team wants to make look good and justify that pick. And he's coming 2 weeks ago, had 6 receptions for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. Last week had 4 receptions for 55 yards. That's, still at 3,600. That's a decent production.
Yeah, and Kmet was back last week, and they both ran about 66%, 60% of the snaps. The big week that he had was A, against Cincinnati, and B, after Kmet got hurt. So that, and just a completely ridiculous catch at the end of the game that got him all of his points. I don't hate that, though. Tambo, would you be okay with subbing in Loveland for Hawkinson, then maybe using either Naylor or Addison on the receiving side?
Certainly fine with that. I want to tack on though to one thing. It's not against John, just noting it because people are going to be playing this for sure. Warren is $300 more than Swift. Warren has 11, 6, 9, 8, 13 fantasy points in these games where Swift has had 15, 15, 24, 29, 16. And he'll be like 1/5 of the ownership of Warren. So just of note, like again, it's all how you look at it, but there's different ways you can go about it. I still think it's interesting that the guy was literally supposedly in the doghouse and injury ready and all prone, and they're going to go with the hot hand Monangai and all this stuff, and you still end up seeing him get in there. So I'm interested in that still. For this spot, I think Loveland is definitely the type of tight end that can get there, on his own if you did want to sub him in there and use it that way, because I think it's not like when we talked about some of these other tight ends where it's like we just use them as value fillers. Loveland could have a touchdown, 8 catches. Like it could definitely be a valuable score that we get out of him. So I like that. And then I like putting like Jefferson and Addison in there together because Addison's only 5,500.
Well, can we hedge here, John? Would you accept Swift and Loveland in this lineup?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always up for more game stacking, right? Particularly if we're targeting large field contests. So what we're doing here is we're just betting on this game environment taking off, but it's got one of the higher totals on the week. It's got, one of the weaker defenses in the Bears. I think it has the players, for this game environment to be the one we wanted to target. So I'm always, the more the merrier when it comes to stacking for me.
So looking at what the rest of the games on this slate and their point totals, the ones that we should be attacking, obviously we said Niners and Arizona, that's at 48.5. Chiefs Broncos is at 45. That's not like absolutely terrible, but we have the Bills and Bucks 47.5, although in bad weather, obviously more points implied for the Bills in that game. Packers Giants is pretty low, but they're 7-point favorites. So maybe some Packers, although they're difficult to figure out. Bengals and Steelers is the other one that we could potentially go to in this spot. Can we build this lineup, John, without using one of the cheap Arizona guys? Or do you think that throwing in Michael Wilson here, or is this lineup just too chalky? Not chalky in terms of like, as Tambo said, no one's going to dupe it, but I could see a lot of lineups being McCarthy, Jefferson, Addison.
I'm not that worried about ownership with this lineup because I think there's going to be other games that are more popular. I think that Arizona San Francisco game is going to be really popular. I think the Cincinnati Pittsburgh game is going to be really popular. I think this game will see some ownership, but I think it's going to be behind those other games. So I think that we're okay, taking some chalk, right? Usually some chalk hits. Like I think Michael Wilson is probably the most like mispriced wide receiver on slate just because of the Marvin Harrison injury news coming out after pricing. So I think that's like the first place I would go if we wanted savings. But I mean, we're doing okay on salary for this lineup as it is once we put it in a defense. So yeah, I think it can go either way.
The only other option from this game that I would really consider, Tambo, if we were to get rid of Loveland and Swift and just try to use up all our receiver spots, Luther Burden kind of spiked in terms of snap share. Last week, he got up to around 50%. His previous high on the year was 28%. We saw a downtick from Zacchaeus, who dropped every pass that came his way. That maybe, almost to John's point about this is a first-round pick with Loveland, like they got to start using him at some point. Burden is in very much the same vein, and he is probably their best deep threat right now.
Yeah, what if we pull Swift and put in Burden, and then think of it as Burden is also the $100 pivot away from the cheap Arizona guy.
Yeah,
that's like it's off the cheap Arizona guy, but it fits the game stack, and then you get the two big picks for those guys with McCarthy, Jefferson, and Addison. And I guess Caleb's $700 more, but I'm fine just staying this side for right now. I really like how it's setting up. And then what happens if we put in Jacobs and the Packers or something and setting it up that way? Can we get McCaffrey and a good option still or something along those lines?
You could get me. It's funny because it almost leaves you back with Michael Wilson. If you go Jacobs, McCaffrey, and Packers D, you only have $4,100 remaining.
Okay.
That you could fudge it. Like if you went back down to, and then we wouldn't have Loveland. We could get Hawkinson, but we could get up to DeMercado in that game too. Then you'd have both running backs going against each other.
That's tricky. Yeah, I didn't see any other versions, Pat. I was trying to just glance through it quickly just to see what else we could get here. It does kind of leave you in a bit of a interesting spot. Man, I do like the Luther Burden call, though, and I like the factor of all those things you said, like Zacchaeus dropping the passes, snap share going down, Burden coming back, all those factors there of actually getting him rolling. He'd be a guy that could push this game and speed it up as well. I wonder if there's something there, but yeah, it's when setting it up now, it's kind of looking tricky for how the build actually builds out.
So what if we just take McCaffrey out, John? I know that you are dead set on me playing McCaffrey in every lineup, and I should really listen to you on that. But if there's other options to go, if we take McCaffrey out and go with Jacobs and Packers, we have $6,500 for a running back and a flex spot, which could give you two very good options.
Yeah, I would consider the Pittsburgh and Cincinnati game, but maybe go to Chase Brown, right? We're not playing Jamar Chase. So like maybe if we're saying that game is a little bit more about the running game and the clock getting eaten up, but not on the Jalen Warren side. Yeah, we've got two good players right there.
Yeah, like you can throw in Drake London as a one-off, Chase Brown as a one-off to get some access to those games. And Drake London has been amazing over the past few weeks, Tambo.
Yeah, definitely an option there. And it's like if you're not going to play Bijan, you're not in this spot, so you can't afford him. So that makes sense. I don't hate that, Pat. That's another way that you could go. And then we at least get our Jacobs Packers D. The lineup's more than different enough already anyway. So it's just, it doesn't project the best right now, but I think it's just a matter of, we're playing Burden and Loveland and some of this stuff. So overall, I think it's fine. The worry is always going to be for everybody and you can't play everything, but there's nothing with that 49ers Cardinals game. You just got to hope it sort of either disappoints or really spreads out across the board. And these guys are the ones that make up those points.
I'm trying to think about how we can fudge this because, is there a way we can get Puka into this lineup? Because I think that Puka is in a very good spot with a banged up Devontae Adams. That would leave us with 44. What's DeMercado? DeMercado is 45. No, that doesn't work either. Out of these top end options, John, if it's not McCaffrey and you have the big receivers between Jackson Smith and Jigba, Puka, and Jamar Chase, hell, I'll even throw Rashee Rice in there despite the fact that it's a very bad spot. Do you think those guys are so much significantly better than a Drake London or an Egbuka that we would have to go up to them? Or do you think that Drake London would be a good stopping point there?
I'm fine stopping with Drake London.
Okay.
You look at the guys like Puka and JSN, they've gotten very expensive. And they're not necessarily playing like defenses that I want to pick on. Rashee Rice the same way with Denver. I think like Drake London has the ability to outscore those guys this week, just based on the matchup and especially given the price.
If it alleviated more of a salary burden, we talked about RJ Harvey in that Kansas City game, Tampa. Woody Marks against Tennessee is also in a really nice spot.
Yeah, he's one of the options I was mentioning earlier when I said there's sort of other guys within that range. Funny enough, it's $100 more for we're already in the Minnesota game who John had mentioned, like Aaron Jones is there, but Chase Brown's just up above it. Swift, who I'd mentioned. There's really a lot of options in this range, but Woody has been talked about this week as going to get even more carries. So he's a guy that you could fit in there.
Well, let's enter that one, and let's move to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. John, where would you like to start with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati? Is it Flacco?
I'd go, man, I'm always going to lean towards picking on the Bengals defense. I'd go Aaron Rodgers. Had a pretty good game in this Week 7 matchup. Pretty clear, top wide receiver, DK Metcalf. Maybe we're avoiding Jalen Warren in this lineup, just saying it's going through the passing game.
Hold on. The issue with the Steelers, I mean, I'm good with Rodgers and Metcalf. I don't know who else to throw into this from the passing game. Like, is it Calvin Austin? Is it Roman Wilson? Is it one of their 8 tight ends? Or is this just good enough?
I think you're going to John, but I'll say that I was going to cut you off because that's the benefit, Pat. With 11 games, you can just stop. Let's just get that, and let's get Jamar Chase or whatever you like. If you prefer Chase Brown, whatever. I'm just saying, like, I would just access that, and then
can we do that? We go Chase and Chase.
If you wanted to have extra from that side, you could. I'm just saying, I don't think you need to. And I think that's what I think a lot of people stumble on. So I'm glad you brought it up because I think a lot of people are like, well, I know Metcalf, but I can't figure the rest out. No, you don't have to figure out the rest of the lineup. You don't have to figure out the rest of this stack. Sure, if you're going to go heavy on it, and I like the Aaron Rodgers side like John this week, I think that you can find other stacks in here and take more risk on. But if you're just building it out and you like Rodgers and Metcalf and Jamar Chase, stop there and now start filling it out with other stuff because I don't even see, heavy ownership across the board on all of those put together. And then there's a ton of different spots you can still get different with beyond this.
Would you be okay with just Rodgers and Metcalf and Jamar Chase, John, and figure out the rest?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we need to necessarily parse through Pat Freiermuth versus Darnell Washington, right? Like nobody's going to hit on that exact lineup, most likely, right? When you have these teams that just spread it out among the 3 tight ends. Maybe we just don't need to pick among them. Maybe Trey McBride's just going to outscore all of them, and Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf gives us the salary to just get Trey McBride instead.
So if we were to pivot off this, but go to the other positions with the salary we have remaining, John, some of the names that project out really well on this slate that we haven't really talked about as of yet, we haven't put any Bills or Bucks in a lineup yet. Is this a James Cook lineup? Is this a Agbuka lineup? We don't know the status of Bucky Irving or Chris Godwin as we come in. It's looking like Bucky might play, but who knows? But this is a great spot for Rachaad White. If not, I know that Sean Tucker was taking over more of the lead, but the Bills cannot stop anyone on the ground.
Yeah, there is the weather concern though in that game. I'm in situations like that, I do have a tendency to just either not use one-offs from the game. If the weather is perfectly fine, maybe I want Josh Allen. If the offenses do have the edge, maybe I want Josh Allen or Baker Mayfield. But there's also a chance that the game just gets ground down. James Cook does well on the ground, but doesn't catch any passes. I would be okay not getting a piece of that game in my lineups that don't feature that game.
So of those mid-tier running backs that we spoke about a little bit earlier, in terms of projected value, Tambo, it goes Chase Brown, Woody Marks, Aaron Jones, then RJ Harvey. And then it's a little bit of a slight drop-off to DeMarcado, assuming that there is no Bam Knight or Trey Benson in this game. And ETN is right above them as well. We have not mentioned ETN or the Chargers. That game could have beaucoup points.
Yeah, the ETN one is, he's right in that range as well, 5,600, getting the opportunities, getting some targets in there as well. So, oh man, it is tricky. I was leaning more to your Woody Marks call that you had from earlier and then trying to see what you could put together from there. But it does seem a little bit eventually you run into it of okay, Michael Wilson, McBride, whatever you decide to go with. Can you fit it, CMC and McBride? I don't know. Can you have a CMC and Wilson you can fit in? So I'm looking at going there before I'm looking at going to these one-off randomized plays. If I land on them in the flex and then flip it so I get my late guy in the flex, whatever, that's fine. But just hand building it out like this, it's not the first spot I'm moving to.
All right. Well, we've been committed to the Packers defense. Maybe we switch up a defense here and go Texans D and Woody Marks because that's a bit of a cheaper defense running back stack.
Yep. Try that.
And now we're playing Texans D, so we're not committed to playing any Titans if we don't want to, which we don't.
Yeah, now is where I'm trying to see what just the fill in the blanks looks like of a, say, we could always go down to Dortch, but I was looking at like CMC with Michael Wilson to start. And then what does that give us?
Oh, with Michael Wilson. Okay, I threw in McBride. That's gonna alleviate some of the problems here. If we go Michael Wilson and CMC, it gives us 4,250. We can find ourselves a cheap tight end. Like, if I know you said you didn't want to play a one-off from that game, John, but would this be a spot for Dawson Knox should Dalton Kincaid not play?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's feasible, but at this point, we're in the price range of the Steelers tight ends that I just said I don't want to parse through. But I mean, if I was, I'd probably go with Freiermuth.
Looking at this slate, the 4 best projected tight ends right now per dollar. McBride way above everyone else. Pitts, Gadsden, and Otten. Like, if you're trying to really dig deep and try to find someone, like the only other one we could say, yeah, I was gonna say Noah Fant, but he's on the other side of the ball that we're trying to play anyway. This becomes a bit trickier. Like,
well,
you
the only version we can hit that you were on earlier, Pat, is if you close it out with Pat Freiermuth, RJ Harvey, and draw. You need $100, so we'll have to go to the Packers D at that point. But it at least makes a good, solid build off of the things that we've talked about.
Freiermuth, RJ Harvey. I mean, it doesn't need to be RJ Harvey. It could be any one of those running backs in that range, John. Do you have a preference of any of them? Like, would you rather go from Texans? I know you like the Packers D, but just because we have Woody Marks in this specific lineup, like, is there a way to like finagle this around a little bit? Like, you could go, I guess we use Michael Wilson, so we can't go DeMercado because we're not doing anything else.
Go Dortch and get more money.
Yeah, you could. What do you think about that? You could go Dortch and let's just see what that gives us, John. We go to Dortch, and then we have 5,800 at flex, which would give us the potential of Swift, Chase Brown, ETN, Tet McMillan, Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison. So pieces from other games that we do like.
Oh, I'd put in Chase Brown in a heartbeat.
Easily. That closes it out nicely. That's
a double chase lineup.
Because we added Fryer, that also like gives merit to add, like the Freiermuth ad, even though it was like just kind of something we came upon based on where we were landing. Now it makes even more sense to really mix it up and be able to go to that angle. So the funny enough, if you keep the Texans in there, Pat, you also could run the Flacco side if you wanted to for $100 more.
Oh, you could just flip it?
Keep everything the same and just say, okay, it's going to be Metcalf and Freiermuth for that side, but I'm going to go with Flacco and Chase Brown. It's different, but it just shows the $100 fits it.
Let's see. Yeah, you could go Flacco. That closes everything out. What else?
Of note, I prefer the Rodgers side better. I just was making a comment, but yeah, that's a key factor. I always look at stuff like that, and I think, I thought that was a pretty good build that we just came upon just randomly, and it fits everything.
Could we find $300 somewhere? I guess we just drop Texans D down to Niners D. We're using pieces of that game. Steelers D. No. Bills D. So, like, hey, the Bills just crush. And then we can go Flacco with Higgins and Chase. No Chase Brown. And it's the same lineup.
Yeah. It's same. Just splitting hairs on who you decide on. Yeah. If anybody's out there likes that version, I would go with that.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I think if you're going to play the Flacco lineup, John, that I'd rather have Higgins than Chase Brown, I think.
Sure. Yeah. More passing. I would even say, could you go to Jalen Warren maybe instead of T. Higgins? But I honestly, if we're playing Flacco,
you know what, we could could go to Warren. Like, you just have to drop down to that gets us back on the Broncos defense if we wanted. So of the cheap Ds, if you're gonna go, I mean, I say this every week. I like the Browns D, but worth noting, like when you take a look at the Browns, and I just want to see if I'm right on this. But a lot of away games, don't they? Cleveland at New England. Let's see. Against Miami, they scored 25 fantasy points at home. They scored 7 against New England. They scored 13 against Green Bay. They scored 4 week 1 against Cincinnati. But their past 3 games at home, they've been excellent as a fantasy defense, even against the Ravens.
Yeah, they did score like -1 against the Ravens.
That's in Baltimore, okay?
Yeah.
Got some slack.
Totally different. Yeah. I don't know. I think of the cheap defenses. I think Titans going up against Houston and Davis Mills. Not that I have anything bad to say about Davis Mills, but I would drop down to maybe Titans if I'm going cheap at defense.
Like, we could also go Jags, Panthers, or Broncos or Seahawks in that spot too. We have enough money to do that. Any takers?
I'm fine with like we've been on the Broncos, but I prefer the other ones. So to me, it was like what John said is fine. Or if you want to go up to the other ones, I guess I was stuck on the Chase Brown. Did Chase Brown get 14 targets from Flacco last game?
He did, yes.
Man, that's pretty solid.
That is, but we have to see the status of Samaje Perine, because that was a big factor in that game where Perine was operating. Not like he's going to miss practice due to high ankle sprain. Yeah, so he's probably not going to play.
Yeah. I like the first build that we had. It was definitely the best. It projected the best, and it's really good.
All right, so yeah, Chase Brown. We'll throw him back in. And we go with, well, now we have Warren, Metcalf, and Freiermuth. Do we just move off of Freiermuth and turn it into Fant at that point?
I mean, you're probably fine with where you're at. We can even go to the next game. I'm just saying, of all those builds we just went through, the original Rodgers one that we ended up closing out with Brown and Texans was definitely the best of all those.
Agreed. So I'm just going to throw in, I'm going to switch Freiermuth for Fant John and have Chase Brown and change Higgins into Chase Brown, and then we get back up to Vikings D.
Yeah, I think that works. Betting against Caleb Williams in Minnesota. I think that's fine.
All right. Do we want to try the Bills overload, John?
We can. It's a difficult stack with Josh Allen.
What are your thoughts on playing that? Because I know that Tambo is in the anti-Mahomes camp at all times on these very large slates where Josh Allen, like, do you need anyone with Josh Allen, or would it just be like Josh Allen, Dawson Knox, figure out the rest?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can go Allen and Knox. I would put somebody in there. I think Khalil Shakir, limited practice, but at least like 6 receptions each of the last 3 games. Like if he adds a touchdown, which he will at some point, at 5,300, it's not a bad price tag if you're playing Josh Allen.
Tambo, has anyone ever won money with Khalil Shakir?
Oh yeah, definitely. He's got a ceiling, but I don't know. I've been saying this lately. The Mahomes situation has actually almost become worse. Or sorry, the Allen situation has almost become worse than Mahomes, because trying to figure out the Shakirs, the Colemans, the randoms, the Knox, Kincaid, et cetera. Now injuries and stuff can help play into it. And we've seen James Cook have some big games and this, that, and the other. But as much as I make fun of Mahomes, at least it's only from a DFS perspective of like, it's hard to get him right and you got to commit to it. But he has committed a lot more lately to, Rice, Kelsey, kind of at least your build when you're building it out. So, I'm not against it, but I think John's correct in that if I'm going Allen here, I'd probably want Allen, Shakir, Knox, assuming or hoping that Kincaid would be out for my build, not for personal reasons, but just noting, and then figuring it out from there, whatever you do on the Tampa Bay side or you want to run it back with.
I'd probably just run it back with Tez Johnson. John, save the money.
Yeah. All right. I think we can go with Tez there. I guess I have a touchdown last game if I'm correct, maybe even 2. So yeah, I think that's
he
fine.
caught he caught the one in the right corner against Tampa.
Yeah.
He had
so
2
yes,
TDs.
I think that's
Look at that. What a hero.
Still 4,700.
Not bad. I'm gonna blow this up. I don't like this lineup.
Okay. The weather just got worse.
Can we do Rams Seahawks? That seems like way more fun.
It's 2 good defenses, but 2 good offenses. Like we kind of know what players we want to get there in that game.
And do you think that people are going to go to that game, Tambo? Because I think people are having a hard time picking that game, who they actually like. But these are very concentrated offenses.
Yeah, it's tough to say. As of now, I think it's going to be late swap, situational stuff more than starting point for most people. I know Puka will always get a little bit of ownership just because he's Puka, but even then, it gets held in check and could be a little bit less when he's 8,700 and more people will want to play the options we talked about earlier, plus the CMC stuff, that when you pay up for McBride stuff, you can't always fit everything. So that's kind of how I look at it. And JSN is now up to almost 9,000 at 8,900. So obviously I think best we've seen so far this season, but it makes it tricky when he gets up to that price tag for people to feel as good about it. So he should be held in check as well.
So if we try Stafford, Puka, JSN, assuming that there's a Devontae Adams either not playing or going to be somewhat limited, John, I think that if there was ever a week to try this would be the week because we have so many cheap options.
Yeah, that's a good point. Normally this kind of lineup, we're immediately running into like prohibitive salary constraints. But yeah, like how many lineups? We talked about it kind of with the Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson lineup. Like how many people are going to go Puka and JSN? Like probably not too many, but there's a correlation there this week. And
the Rams have somehow turned into the Steelers where they're playing 4 tight ends at over a 30% snap rate. do you try to pick one or just say, let's go with this? These are the focal points of this game, and then fill it out around this. Can we get back up?
We want like receptions piling up, right? I don't know. We necessarily want to gamble on Tyler Higbee when there's other like cheap options that are now the primary receiving options in Arizona sub 4K.
So Dortch, because he's cheaper, Tambo?
I think Tyler Higbee's the play. Big brain here, right? You got you're playing Tyler Higbee at tight end instead of Trey McBride, remembering that Trey McBride just had a massive game against this defense and it fits the stack as well. So it's like a win-win-win situation, even though it may not be correct. Just look what it'll allow you to fit when he's 2,700. If we get the Adams news, I think Higbee caught a touchdown last week too, didn't he? So it's even, more possible or capable that we get that. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. He's got 2 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. It's possible at least. So yeah, I don't hate it to see where it lands us. If we have more money to spend later, great. But for now, I kind of like that.
I threw in Dortch. That saves us a bit more money. So now we have a $3,300 and a $2,700 player here. If we do cheap out at defense, I'm going to at least throw the Browns in one lineup. Let's throw them in. It gets us back up to $5,800. I feel like we can work with this with $5,800 for 2 running backs and a flex.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Where's Vidal? Vidal's 59. We didn't even really bring him up at all, but you could go Chase Brown, Jalen Warren, and have $5,600 left for a flex, which is either like ETN, Addison, because we didn't touch that game at all, Wan'Dale Robinson, who's probably going to play a ton of catch up here. We're not using the Packers defense. Woody Marks, RJ Harvey, they're all kind of sitting right here. Does anyone have a way to fill this out a little bit better? Like, would you want to go Chase Brown, DK?
I don't mind Aaron Jones, honestly. Like we're not playing any other pieces of the Minnesota-Chicago game, and it looks like he's back to working his way back to being the primary running back for Minnesota.
Yeah, the only other one that you could kind of do with this, you could go Metcalf with Chase Brown, Tambo, and play like Kamani Vidal if you wanted to.
Yeah, I was trying to see if there was like a version
or
with Woody Marks and
do we have another cheap? Do we have a really cheap non-Arizona receiver? Or because they're so cheap, could you play Michael Wilson and Dortch, John, and not have to worry about playing Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah, I think the cheap, like kind of mispriced salary does mean you don't necessarily need to like force the quarterback on there. But we were talking about Luther Burden earlier as well.
Yeah.
So if, like, don't have a Chicago Minnesota piece.
Yeah, let's throw in Luther Burden and now we have 68.50 for running backs. So we have a lot more flexibility. Even if you wanted to throw in Woody Marks, what does that get us up to? 83. It gets us Bijan. You go Bijan, Woody Marks, Luther Burden for those spots.
I was like I thought we were doing like a Burden for Dortch and then get our Aaron Jones in there. That's how I was thinking of it. And then what does that leave us?
We throw in Burden for Dortch and Burden for Dortch and Aaron Jones. That gives us 57.50 for running backs, which would get us Chase Brown and a flex. I don't even know who's up there for a flex. You go Chase Brown, DK Metcalf.
Do we like the Chargers D against Jags?
Don't hate him.
I guess, yeah. I the best one I could find was pretty close to what you have. It's just I went up to the Chargers D, and then I put in Chase Brown like you have, and I put in Woody Marks. So you get the Minnesota Chicago back and forth. You get the Woody Marks, Chase Brown, solid running back spots, and then it lands you on the Chargers. You could pick any D at 2,700. The Jags are right there too. I was just trying to look at what the versions would look like, and that's what I saw.
At least with this one, John, you get Chase Brown with Metcalf if you want to get 2 guys pushing the pace on either end.
Yeah, I mean, we have a primary stack here, right, with Stafford, Puka, and JSN, but then we've got like multiple like mini stacks from other games that we wanted to target with Luther Burden and Aaron Jones, and then Chase Brown and DK Metcalf. And we've got our then our quarterback paired with our tight end as well. This lineup checks a lot of the boxes. I
just don't know if I like going against Lamar here. I don't know what turnovers the Ravens are making that we're seeing it, and Cleveland hasn't done shit except for one game all season where they played Miami. So that's where I was thinking of the secondary of just like Chase Brown doesn't need pushed to have a big game. He can get 14 targets again and be just fine on a DK point format. And so I kind of like some sort of flip with that. Whatever else you like, I would just, even if you take out Woody Marks and Chargers D in this version and put Chase Brown up, that would leave us a flex and a D to mess around with, and then not have.
I mean, we could play. Let's see. We didn't use any Bills. Like, could we just go to Buccaneers defense and just call it that way? Because if you don't like the Browns D.
Yeah, I would definitely go that route for sure. I like going against teams that I'm not playing in that spot and that I think could turn it over more. And I just, like I said, for the Ravens, I don't see it being a ton of turnovers, but we could see it, I guess. I could see like Allen, especially if he's down guys or something like that, like take the sacks and make mistakes. So I could see it more with the Bucs there. Yeah, I like that.
Would it make more sense to use the Cardinals since we don't have any piece of that game?
Yeah, that's actually what I was just going to say. If we're not going to be on that game, like we talked about earlier, you kind of are hoping for a dud or like the defenses mess up the situation and get involved. So I like that build the best for sure.
All right, let's roll with that. We'll do one more game. If you guys want to decide which one you want to go to, Chargers, Jags, that's available. Carolina, Atlanta, that would not be my preference. But yeah, John, you came sixth in the Millionaire Maker. Let's listen to you. What's your Davis Mills of the week?
Ooh, got to go with somebody cheap. Let's see.
Davis Mills.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Facing the Titans.
Of note, on 4for4.com right now, there is the wide receiver breakout model, and Nico Collins is up near the very top.
I'll say, like, we didn't do our Jameis lineup yet, did we?
Oh yeah, right. Jameis with
and that gives
Packers.
us our defense too.
Yeah. Jameis with Packers D. Perfect. There's our stack. Slayton has to be the one that goes off in this lineup, wouldn't he, Tambo?
Yeah, but what's the situation? Everyone was already rolling with that on day one, and then we got the news that he was injured or something like that. And no
practice.
Still bothered by hamstring injury, no practice. Yeah, DNP on Thursday. So,
all right, one day old it is. I saw they picked up Isaiah Hodgins again. That guy won us tons of money in that weird Daniel Jones playoff run like 4 years ago. That guy was awesome.
He was.
This lineup is screaming for Josh Jacobs.
Yes, you are correct. Although, how can he score when the Packers D scores 4 touchdowns?
True.
They could just get 4 interceptions that land him there, and the 4 touchdowns could go to him, and then that gets Jameis rolling again quickly. So, like that. What about, do you think he uses Theo as much as we've seen Theo be used? Because Theo's still getting like 7-8 targets a game.
I would hope so. I mean, Njoku went off the moment that Jameis started playing last year.
All right. Well, this is a great start. Let's start here.
Yeah, we're good. This is the winning lineup. Jameis, Jacobs, Wandale, Theo, and Packers D. Because I don't think we want to fuck around at all with any of the Packers receivers. I don't even know which ones are playing at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
So $6,100, 2 receivers, a flex, and a running back. Is this where you jam in the cheap guy and just pay up, or do we go? Go ahead.
It fills itself out, Pat. You can go back to our Chase Brown Metcalf, and you get to go to Wilson and McCaffrey.
Really?
There you go. Yeah, it leaves $200 to play with too if you want to mess around with it further. But that's the versions we've been looking at all day. That's the spots we've been looking at, and it's $1 million lineup right there. John, you're going to come first this week, but you're going to have to chop it now.
Nice.
Yeah, you're not gonna be chopping it with me because the point that I didn't make about the Millionaire Maker. Actually, I think I'd play like, you know what? Maybe I'll play this one in that. I just throw him one lineup a week as a scratch lottery ticket, but I actively avoid. Like if you weren't going to play 150 lineups, both of you, would you play in the $20 Millionaire Maker?
If I wasn't playing 150, would I play in the $20 Millie Maker?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people. I see people win it all the time with like 10 lineups.
But is that a way that you would want to play it?
I would prefer to have 150 lineups in it, but yeah, if you're not going to have 150, you can still play it.
John?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, yeah, I like playing 150 lineups in it because it's just a massive contest, and that fits my bankroll. But yeah, I mean, I think if I was playing 10 lineups, there have been weeks where I'm just like not doing 150 sets. I'm traveling or whatever. I'm doing 10 lineups. Like, yeah, I'm going to put them in the Millie Maker. It's I have 1/15 the chances or whatever, right? But I have 1/15 the financial exposure.
Fair enough. All right. Well, John, as mentioned, you, who's it? You, Neil, and who else is joining you on that show? Pat is on that show. Yeah. And what time is that?
That'll be 12:30.
12 Eastern.
YouTube. Yes.
because it's almost 12:30 my time right now. So obviously it's not going to be in 20 minutes from now. But yeah, in about an hour and 20 minutes, you can catch John on the 4for4 YouTube channel. Tambo, you and Blickle is at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Ship Nation.
Yep, 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturdays, and then 10 a.m. Eastern on Sundays with Hoop, Title, and myself. Final thoughts for the week, both on the Ship It Nation YouTube station. So check that out.
Joe in the chat actually points out something very interesting about that lineup we just built, that I don't know about Wandale. He might be too little for Jameis to see him.
Okay.
See, Jameis, tall guy looking downfield. Wandale just might not appear in his, and he has bad vision too. We always forget this about Jameis. Bad eyes.
Oh, he got that surgery.
Oh, he got that surgery.
Yeah,
that's right.
he
So
did.
maybe he will be able to see Wandale now. He's going to be like Jordan. He's going to be like Costanza, pointing out dimes.
I'm not sure Jameis looks before he throws, so it might not matter.
That might be something too. Although Wandale just might not be downfield enough to be in the Jameis range. We'll end up seeing. Hopefully that one ends up winning us $1 million, or at least a split. I'll take a split of $1 million. That'd be fine. I'll split it with you guys and you good people, the viewers. If you're really good viewers, you'll smash the like and sub to the channel. And if you always want to catch this on recap, get it on demand, podcast style, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts as well. Leaving us a fun, good rating and review up there as well. That would be very nice. I'll be back Saturday with the full injury report once we have more of that information. I'll also release that in cheat sheet form. And I'll be back for the Red Zone watch along and Sunday Night Live at 7:15 p.m. Eastern time with me, Cust, a special guest, and a special guest picker, which is going to be one of you people who is going to be on air this week, guessing along with us. That's news to Jared. I saw his eyes. Anyway, I will see you then, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
All good? Yeah.
All right.
That was